Welcome to Conflict Managed. I'm your host, Mary Brown. Conflict Managed is a weekly podcast about toxic work environments and how to fix them. We're glad you're here. Good morning, Johnny, and welcome to Conflict Managed.
Good morning, Mary. Hope you're well.
Yes, and you as well. Looks like a beautiful sunny day where you are.
It is. It is. We're going to enjoy some sunshine today and hopefully some golf this afternoon. So,
That sounds lovely. Well, Johnny, I would like to hear about the first job you ever had as a young person.
the first one that was a real job that I was actually paying taxes on, probably. Growing up, I sold candy and took out trash for people. So I've kind of always had the entrepreneur spirit, so to speak. But my first real job was probably in the early 90s, working at Hardee's, working there for the summer. I would work there for a couple of summers, and I was the guy that was outside scrubbing what they call scrubbing the pads. So with all the oil leakage that comes around the drive-through, you ever see a guy or a gal out there with a spray hose and they're scrubbing those pads? That was me for a couple of summers in the Wilmington, North Carolina summer heat.
Wow.
So that was a good intro to sweat labor, and I wasn't skilled enough to work the register or anything, so they had me outside. But that was one of my first jobs. During school, I was working at Food Lion down the street, making $4.20 an hour minimum wage. That would have been like 93, I guess, 92. Stocking shelves and checking people out and bagging groceries. So I did a lot of that type of stuff early on. I think dealing with customers, being able to bag groceries the right way was probably more instructional than I thought it would be, because some people are very particular about where you put your box of cereal. So you kind of learn well, how would you like this done? Have to get some customer service skills. So yeah, those were kind of the menial type jobs that I did through high school. Worked at a hardware store for a little while, unloading trucks. But yeah, that was kind of my first cut my teeth into the real world, so to speak, doing some of that type of work.
Those are some interesting first jobs. I mean, especially I think about the first one of really putting in the work of starting at the bottom, right? I mean, outside scrub and grease in the heat, when cars are wanting to go through you because they're just trying to
Yes.
get to their food. To the real lessons. I like that you said, you think about a job from the outside, it's just bagging groceries, and you just do it in a particular way, but I'm sure you learned very quickly and not so fast. People are particular about what goes where and how. Back in the days when people largely had their groceries bagged, and
Exactly.
this customer service. Or what does it mean? From the outside, it looks like a job is just in a box, but when you deal with people, it's never just one way. It's relational, even with bagging groceries.
It really is. It's conversations. It's learning. With me, I started learning the same customers that would come through all the time. So it's about relationship building. And back then as well, they would want you sometimes to carry it to their car for them, especially some of the elderly customers. And we would go out and put it in their car, and yeah, just really trying to learn people. Sorry, Sonny, will you double bag that for me? Or I want paper, I don't want plastic, right? So it's all of these things. And it really comes down to not just purchasing the items, but it's the experience, right? It's the experience, what they're going to experience. Do I have to worry about my bag, breaking halfway up the steps when I get home? Yeah, it's all that stuff. I didn't think about that at the age of 16 or whatever, but that's what I was learning.
Yeah, and not to get too philosophical on this point, but I was thinking that, a lot of elderly people, that's their outing for the day, that's their human contact. And so this idea of what are people uh, thinking or wanting out of a particular experience, some people just can't get out of there soon enough. They're not thinking about, they don't care about where things go. They want to get in and get out, and that's their expectation. Other people
Yes.
want to tarry because they do feel known, and this is a community to them. And so again, just this particularity of something so simple, of bagging and being in the grocery store, but people have different expectations.
Absolutely. I think you're absolutely right about that. And for me, it wasn't something that I consciously probably was registering at that moment in time. But you're absolutely right because you would have the I don't know the guys, the soccer dads or soccer moms coming in. They're like, "Hurry up, get me out!" Just no, I don't even want a bag. I don't want the receipt, and you have to adjust to that.
Right.
So meet
So
people where they are.
that's right. So after these jobs, you went off to college. What did you major in?
Yeah, so I went off actually I took a non-traditional approach to school, which is basically to say I took a traditional approach to life for the most part. If I had a way of learning it the hard way, I usually signed up for that class for whatever reason. So yeah, I actually went to community college for a couple of years. I didn't have the grades to get into a four-year school right after high school. I was a terrible student. Didn't care about school, just was trying to figure out how to get out. But I did go to community college for the first 2 years from like 94 to 96. Dropped out, pursued a couple of years of music, just wanted to be back with my friends. There was a whole other story with me having to move in early high school years, and I was always resentful kind of that. So trying to just make up some of my childhood. But yeah, so I ended up after figuring out life is hard. I had to go back and say, you know what, I need to get some education. And for me, it really happened around 2001. I mean, 9/11 really changed a lot
Mm.
for a lot of people. And for me, it happened just before that. I actually went back to school after 2 years. I was about to lose all of my credits if I didn't go back and finish. And so I actually started going back to Mount Olive University with a satellite location. And my first class, Mary, this is so interesting. My first class was on a Tuesday night. I had classes Tuesdays and Thursday night. And my first class was on a Tuesday night, September the 11th, and that
Mm.
class was canceled.
Mm.
And that was my first class back to college. But something happened around that age for me, and something just turned on. I started seeing my friends and started seeing my cohorts and people that I grew up with. They were so much further down the line than I was, and I felt like I had lost 2 or 3 years of just basically messing around. Um, so I felt like I was always playing from behind. And when that happened, when that something switched in my mind, and I just had a thirst for knowledge, uh, I figured out later on in life, later on down the road, between my just reading and learning and workshops and self-help books. I mean, I just turned into this different person. My sisters actually tell me I'm the baby of the family. He's like, "Who is this kid? I'm older than you and I'm smarter than you. Where did this little Johnny come from all of a sudden?" But something happened. I think that happens with a lot of people that sometimes they get sick and tired of being sick and tired
Mhm.
and they raise their standards and they go, I'm not going to live like this anymore.
Mhm.
And that's what happened to me around 2001. I went back to school, got my degrees. And I always said that the degrees for me was more about just getting my foot in the door to have the job interview. I never really felt like the degree got me the job. I felt like it gave me the opportunity to get my foot in the door. It was
Mhm.
a lot of the self-education I did on myself. Um, what we call now, soft skills that they don't teach in school.
Mhm.
And that's what really helps me. So yeah, I went back and got my bachelor's in business, and then I have my MBA in the dual focus of organizational development and HR, human resources. I figured out if I can learn people and learn the people side of things, there's tools and strategies for the rest of the stuff.
Mm.
If you can learn people, you got 90% of it, you know,
Yeah.
beat already, which is why I love your podcast. Conflict, right? It's everywhere. How do you manage it well? And those who can, man, they're going to be heads and shoulders above everybody else because they're the thermometer in the room. They're not the thermostat. They're the ones that set the tone. And if you can learn that skill and do it well, the rest of it will come.
Oh, I like that. I really like thinking of it that way. And yeah, I think that if you know how to manage conflict and you will do it and you'll do it well, everybody's going to want you on their team. They're going to want to be around you because we want our real problems solved. And I know we're going to get into your book, Failure Disrupted, but I, a lot of the failure that I see, because my world deals in conflict, is this inability to deal with conflict or deal with it fruitfully. Um, and so disrupting those narratives to give ourselves a different story because these soft skills, I think the wonderful news about them is that they can be learned. Um, and and you can develop them and you don't have to have a traditional education or you could go through a traditional education, but you're going to have to seek that out because as you're right, a lot of traditional forms of education, they're not focusing on that. It's more all the theory. And
Right.
theory is good and well, and it has its place. But those so-called soft skills, which we then think they're like the sprinkles on top, they're really the meat and potatoes. I mean, I absolutely agree.
Yeah, I feel like college, traditional college or university is going to teach you the hard skills, which is the knowledge, but the soft skills is the wisdom.
Mm,
It's the knowledge of how to, how to put the box of cereal in the bag, right? To where it doesn't split the bag. But the soft skill of the wisdom of looking at the customer across the desk from you or across the aisle from you and say, how exactly do you want this done? It's the how behind the what, right? And you
mhm,
have to have both. And I think colleges could do a much better job of how to communicate, how to look at people in the eye, how to be empathetic, how to listen intently and actively listen, which obviously these are all these are components to how to manage conflict well. So yes,
mm. I love this distinction between knowledge and wisdom. Um, so, as my listeners know, I say this all the time. I taught philosophy forever, so long, over 20 years. And the four cardinal virtues are wisdom, courage, justice, and moderation. And I'm a virtue ethicist. And so I think a lot about the development of habits and the importance of, obviously, we'll talk about conflict, courage, but wisdom. And so, you can learn all the live long day. You can learn all this knowledge, and knowledge is great and it has its place. But if you
yes,
don't know what to do with it, it's not, what kind of good is it going to do you? It's going to be so thin. But wisdom, the application of it, the what does it really mean? How to draw things together. And I really like this idea of the wisdom is the people part. How does this really apply here and when? And yeah, the how of it.
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I teach at Charleston Southern University. I'm an adjunct instructor there one time a week, so I do it part time. And I tell my students all the time. I ask them at the beginning of the class, I say, raise your hand if knowledge is power.
Hmm.
And everybody raises their hand because we've heard that forever, right?
Right.
And I go, put your hand down. It's not. It's potential power.
Right.
If you don't have the wisdom to know what to do and when to do it,
Yes.
knowledge doesn't help you at all. I can go try to plant all day long, knowing that planting is good, but if I do it in winter, it's not going to be powerful. I
Yeah.
have to know when to do. So there's seasons and cycles that we have to look through, and we have to have the application. It does me no good. I think about the old gym. I don't know, growing up in the 80s and 90s. Our old janitor at the school would have like a big key ring with all these keys. They open up every lock in the school. So you can have the keys when you graduate, but if you don't know which doors they unlocked, what good is having the keys?
Mhm.
So you got to know which locks unlock which with which key. So that's the wisdom part. So we really need to focus on that as well. It's not a lack of knowledge anymore. Chat GPT, Rock, the internet, wisdom or knowledge is everywhere. It's the wisdom that we're lacking.
Mhm.
That's where the people of tomorrow's workforce is going to really excel to know how to apply, not just what to apply.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So, tell us where you went after college.
Where I went back to college or
No,
when?
no. You got your degree, and then what was next for you?
Oh, after that, I went through some quarter life crisis. I was about 30 years old. I'll call that quarter life instead of midlife. I ended up becoming a single father to a 4-year-old little girl. I married a friend of mine, childhood friend, and like a lot of young marriages, they did not last.
Mhm.
And so I went through in around 2006. The mother had left and moved out of the state, and I gained full custody of my daughter. So I had about a year through a divorce process where I was going, I thought I was on track. I thought I had this plan. I was going to go back to school, and I did this, and I did. And you have this brand new 3-year-old little baby. Everything was looking, forward. And then sometimes I believe God goes, okay, well, now here comes something else. So how are you going to respond to that? So I took about 6 months to a year and really didn't do much of anything. I was working at that time. Actually, I was working in construction and real estate. And we all remember what started happening around 2008 in real estate and construction, the bank crisis, all of this. Well, we were having a global economy crisis. I was having a personal crisis, having to
Mhm.
figure out how to braid ponytails or braid hair and, put in ponytails as a single dad. Um, So that was kind of an awakening for me, going from building multi-million dollar homes and helping develop multi-million dollar subdivisions to really just getting quiet for a moment and ask myself, okay, what do I really want to not just do, but what do I want to become? And not to get too philosophical to your point, but I believe everything on the exterior is a reflection on the interior. I really do. I tell my kids this all the time. Life gets better when you do. Your relationships get better when you do. Work will get better for you when you do. It starts with what's already in your hand. Meet yourself where your feet are right now. I think too many times we look outside of ourselves and goes, well, when that changes, I'll be better. No, start, and that may be true. Maybe when that economy changes, it will be better. But what can you do right now, right? What's in your hand that you're currently holding? So, yeah, long story short, I decided not to be in real estate and construction, and I really, through a divorce, through really trying to figure out where I wanted to plant my flag and who did I want to become, not just what did I want to do. I found myself in hospice care, which
Mm.
was totally a 306 or 180 degrees from anything I thought I would ever get into. And that's a whole nother story. I won't bore your listeners with all of that, but it's suffice to say that I really went from focusing on what can I do to make a living and have a job to what can I do to design a life and find my work. And I teach that all the time now in my consulting. When you can find your work, the job is easy. No one can ever be fired from their job, from their work, because that's something you're becoming, right? That's something you're becoming the highest version of yourself in this. I was becoming the highest version of myself bagging groceries, even though I didn't realize that. I was getting paid to do a job, and I was being also paid to find out who I am in relation to what I was doing. And for me, that was end of life care. And after I really should have never gotten a job. Like I said, my college degree got me the interview, and I think me being a pretty good salesman got me the job. And that's those soft skills that I had to learn outside of college. But they gave me a shot, and I fell in love with the industry, and the industry fell in love with me, and that led me to starting working with elderly and terminally ill, chronically ill patients. And man, that was just passion for me to really know that every day that you wake up, somebody's life is going to be improved dramatically and tangibly because you decided to get out of the bed today to go offer healing, to go offer care to someone. And man, it just sparked my spirit. And a whole nother story with going through that, learning the industry. Ended up getting fired 2 years after being in the industry. And that's when I started my own company. So from not knowing anything about healthcare to starting my own healthcare company that served over 6,000 patients and over 250 employees, I went from not knowing the vocabulary to managing and running 5 different companies, all in healthcare in about 3 years. So remember how I said I felt like I was always from behind? I always had to like I was like a slingshot. My wife says I was kind of like a slingshot. I was going backwards and all of a sudden I just went forward. And that was not by default. That was by design. And anybody can do that. I think anybody can do that when they find their work.
Mm. I like that, this idea of finding your work or your vocation. And when we think about work-life balance, right, there is this bifurcation of this is who I am at work, this is who I am at home or my private life. And I understand that because the lines have been so blurred of how much should my paycheck or my job, the work, the place I go, how much do they get to demand of my time? How much of my off hours do they really get? And so this desire to try to say, no, 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 you don't get all of me, you get this part of me. But I like what you're saying is, I think what people really are now trying to get to with this work-life balance of, I'm this one whole person. I am a professional and this professional or this worker is who I am, and then I go into these different scenarios, right? I might get paid by you, I might get paid by me, I might be out with my kids, but I'm this one person moving through these different scenarios. Is that
Right.
sort of how you see it?
I kind of, but not really.
Okay, yeah, tell me.
I reject the work life balance
Okay.
idea. I don't think it's feasible. I've never seen anyone actually do it well. People say I'm a great multitasker, and I go, great. Even the best multitaskers can't sing but one song at a time. Our brain literally cannot sing two different things at one time. I can't be singing a song and thinking about a different song at the same time. So in my companies, again, we had over 250 employees of healthcare workers from doctors to certified nursing assistants and the whole spectrum. And we would not focus on work-life balance. We would focus on work-life blend. And it's a lot easier to blend because that's what we do naturally. And I'm a person that goes, you know what? I'm just way too lazy to try to fight against natural behavior. I'm just going to try to redirect it. So instead of trying to fight this whole idea, we're gonna have this nice balance. And when you get to work, you're over here and you're just going to cut off everything that's going on with your crazy, college kids and your crazy husband out, at home or what have you. You're going to forget about all that. Well, you can't do it. So you're trying to balance that out and say, I'm going to have an equal amount over here. And then when I go home, I'm not going to think about what's going on at work that all the phone calls that I didn't call, or emails I didn't return because I was thinking about my husband. So we always find ourselves thinking about the place that we're not.
Mm.
And I'm at home, I'm thinking about work. And I'm at work, I'm thinking about home. And so that's that whole idea, in my opinion, of the whole balance that has never worked. So work-life blend to me is differently. It's different. And I would tell my staff, I would say, look, and I was a little unique, I guess, but most of everything we did was in the home setting. So if I had a nurse, think about home health, right? If I had a nurse coming to the office and all of a sudden I leave to go to lunch and I see them at Walmart, doing a little bit of shopping, I know they're shopping in between two of their visits. So
Mhm.
we're about outcomes. So I would tell them, look, blend that work life. We know that you're already doing it, so I'm not going to punish you for your behavior and wanting to do that. Don't run away from me if you see me at Walmart. I know you're in between visits. It's okay. Blend that stuff because I know when you get home charting at night, you're probably sitting next to your husband. He's wanting to watch, or wife. Obviously, I have male nurses as well, but you're sitting next to your significant other and you're probably charting, and that's blending that as well.
Mhm.
So being able to find the balance in the blend, if that makes sense, I
Mhm.
think it's been way more successful for our staff, our employees, again, over 5 different companies. And our turnover rate, it was as evidenced by our turnover rate.
Mhm.
People stayed with us
Mhm.
because they appreciated the fact that, hey, as long as the outcomes are being achieved, I am going to knock off an hour early to go to my daughter's soccer game. And that's that, yeah, but it's at 3 o'clock. You're supposed to be on until 5. No, because I know the blend will happen. Does that
Mhm.
make sense?
It does. I really like that too. And I also like what you said, it's already happening, right? So we
Already
can
happened.
either ask people to hide and lie, or we can just accept people are people and they have these whole lives. And when we allow people to be whole people, then we are going to reduce turnover. We are going to have healthier work environments, better outcomes because we have healthier people working for us,
Yes.
healthier mentally and physically. And then they're going to be, we want to be in workplaces that value us and make accommodations for people, right? I mean, and
That's right.
that's who we are.
For the whole person, the spiritual, the family life, the relational, the work life, all of that stuff. And for us, we hardwired into our culture, you come to work with us and be married, what are your personal goals? Where do you want to be? Where are you currently at? What type of knowledge deficit or skill set deficit do you feel like you have that's keeping you from meeting your goals? And our whole as leadership, and this goes throughout any industry, in my opinion, is that you've got to get your C-suite and your director level positions working in concert with all the labor force to say, hey, we have individual, or I'm sorry, we have organizational corporate goals that we're trying to meet, but I can't meet those goals corporately if I can't help you meet your goals individually. So what
Mhm.
are your goals individually? Because you know what I want to make sure happens? Now, whatever those goals are individually, that the employee is working on, they can't meet those goals without me. So
Mhm.
I can't meet my corporate goals without you, and you can't meet your individual goals without me. And we're all working together towards the same purpose. And in our case, of changing patients' lives. That was the outcome ultimately for all of us. So
Mhm.
how do we get better individually? It's like a marriage. My wife and I should be better together than we would ever be individually because the vision is more grand.
Mhm.
She has her vision, I have my vision. But when they come together, the grander vision would be something we couldn't have imagined by ourselves. that's when the magic starts to happen. And it can happen, but you have to be intentional about it, intentional conversations.
Mm. I love that. I've been thinking a lot about loyalty recently, loyalty of employers to employees and vice versa. And there's, this great shift that has happened from, my father-in-law worked at Otis Elevator for 40 years, right? And that
Right.
was just you start someplace, and that was the expectation, and there was this kind of loyalty, and but that has on both ends, corporate loyalty, individual loyalty seem to have been not just coming apart, but just like shattered. And it seems like this vision that you're giving is just this real practical way to build that up again, right? This idea that the whole is greater than the sum, that together we can do more, and that this vision of the individual and the corporate goal, not at loggerheads, but they both need to be met in order to meet the higher goal. That's lovely.
It's like any other relationship, whether it's your best friend, right? Your spouse, like I said, or maybe a sibling. I mean, it works that way. Why are we not trying to adopt that into the professional world? I don't even want to say corporate world, because if it's a nonprofit, if it's a church, if it's
Hmm.
any type of entity
Hmm.
where it takes more than one person to get to the end result, it's really a philosophy that when you come into our organization, you better understand that we're going to be turning to each other, not on each other in all
Hmm.
things. And we look at each other as the advocate, not the enemy. Now, we
Hmm.
may do things that tick each other off. We are going to do things that tick each other off, and we are going to have conflict, and I am going to mess it up. And I'll never lie to you, but I may tell you a mistruth, right? I tell people that. I'll never lie to you, but I may tell you something that's not true just because I didn't know at the time. But if we always assume the best in each other until there's a reason not to, man, it just sets the whole temperature differently for everyone walking into the organization. And then again, it's up to leadership to do one or two things all the time. Show them where to look and show them what to see, because people need to focus. They need to stay focused. Distraction destroys. I say that all the time. And people, it's easy to get distracted, especially in our environment and in our world right now with all the different noise that just comes at us all the time.
Hmm.
Leadership, it's more incumbent upon them now more than ever to make sure that we're just consistently beating the drum of the mission, of the vision, and keeping everybody focused on the outcomes. We used to tell people all the time, I'm never going to ask you, what are you working on? I'm going to ask you what you're working towards. And that keeps people mission focused.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. These little tweaks in words, sometimes you think, well, why this word? Well, words really are very powerful. They're very evocative. And when you encourage people and set the tone and train them that this is what we're doing, and again, this being on mission and mission driven, and then giving people the tools and the focus, um, it's about, as you already mentioned, intentionality. What are you intentionally doing? Great doesn't happen on its own. It's intentional, sustained effort to get where it is that you want to go. So you brought up conflict, and so I want to hear about maybe your own development on dealing with conflict. Can you tell us about how you thought about conflict, and maybe how you dealt with it as a younger person versus how you think about conflict now?
Yeah, as a younger person, working at the hardware store, I was at a True Value hardware store in high school and going into my first year of community college. And I saw that question and it really made me think about, I'll just call him Mr. Wayne to protect the innocent here and the guilty. But Mr. Wayne was my supervisor, and he was kind of the first one where I really just hit heads with this guy. And he was probably at the time, he's probably, late 40s type guy. He's still trying to make his mark in the world, I guess, and work his way up through it. But he was just a hard-nosed, always in your face type of boss. And nothing was ever right. And given, I don't know, I was, 17, 18 years old, so I probably wasn't doing it right. Who knows? I was doing it right in my mind, but in Wayne's mind, I was not doing it right. And he's just the type of guy that when we would hit the front door, everybody on the floor in the store would just scatter.
Mm.
And he would literally walk around and go, Marion, what you working on? You holding up that counter? That counter doesn't need you to hold it up. What you working on? Go do something. If you weren't actively doing something, man, he would just be on you. And thinking about him, man, I just hated him. I hated him as a person, and that says a lot because I normally don't hate people. But it all came to a crescendo one particular Saturday afternoon where I was really trying my best with a customer, and man, he just like cussed me out in front of a customer up at the store front,
Mm.
and just like pushed me out of the way, let me do it. You screwed it up, yada yada, trying to take care of the customer. Customer left, and I'm enough of a fighter to where when you cross the line with me, I stop becoming concerned with how you feel about me, and I start becoming a lot more concerned with how I'm starting to feel about you. And he crossed it at that moment. And, again, I was 17, 18 years old. I could have taken him. At least that's what I was thinking. So we met at each other in the back room, and I can't remember the exact conversation, but it was something to the effect, my own parents has never talked to me that way and you're not going to either. And it was you talk about conflict, you're talking about two guys, ego driven, that were at each other's face in the back room. I didn't do it in public. I knew enough about, I don't know why. I guess I had that whatever. I didn't want to embarrass him in front of other employees like he did me. But I laid down the law with him right then. And it's interesting because he completely changed after that, not just for me, but for the entire staff. And
Mm.
the team really started to come together. And it's mostly guys that was working at this hardware store, young guys my age. But it was a confrontation that it kept building up, kept building up. And I have to believe now, Mary, I don't even believe he understood he was coming off that way.
Mm.
He really didn't understand what he was projecting. I don't believe his inside was matching the outside until I showed him what he looked like and what he sounded like. And in that particular situation, it turned out I mean, he was still Wayne. He was always still Wayne, but I think I grew about 3 foot taller in his eyes because I stood up to him and I didn't do it from a place of ego, I guess maybe. I did it from a place of these are my boundaries and these are my standards, and I'm not going to stand for that. And if that's how it's going to be, then we can part ways or what have you. So that really worked out well. That was one of the situations that it taught me. Uh, it was a situation where somebody taught me somebody I didn't like them. Somebody I liked the least probably taught me the most, if that
Mm.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be really good. And to this day, I still kind of think about him every once in a while, walking around with his glasses at the end of his nose with his pot belly, chewing his gum really fast. Um, but that turned out nice. That turned out well. And I think the takeaway for that is respectfully being able to set a boundary with people. And if they don't respect it, then you've done your part and you probably do need to move on. But
Hmm.
for him, it changed. I call that leading from behind. Sometimes you have to lead from behind and show other people what right looks like because they wouldn't know or just don't know. So
Hmm.
that was a long answer, but I really thought a lot about that answer before I got on the call with you because I really respect Wayne at this point. I respect him for how he changed.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
a great story for a variety of reasons. And one that, so you're wearing a shirt. If you're just listening and you won't see this, it says see the unseen. And I think about that with conflict is that many times you've got somebody who's in conflict with another person, but who's really in conflict? This one person, because the other person doesn't even know. They may not know that their behavior is crossing lines. They think that maybe this is the way to manage because that's the only thing that's ever been modeled. They've never been trained or had any other sort of experience, and they don't even think anything is wrong.
That's
And
right.
so we're not going to be able to solve conflicts, the unmanaged ones, if we don't have conversations, if we don't first see what's going on for ourselves, so de-escalate, like what exactly is the problem, so that we can see it. And then we're able to invite somebody else into a dialogue to talk
Mhm.
with them. But so many times we've made up our mind that the other person causing us pain or acting unprofessionally or whatever it is they're doing it intentionally, they're doing it maliciously. Sometimes that is the case, but that's really the exception. Many times people are doing what they think is right, or I mean, they're not even really thinking about it. And so bringing
That's
it
right.
to their attention is the first step, or one of the steps. The first step is you figuring it out what's going on yourself and preparing, but inviting somebody else into a dialogue to help them see uh, what is going on, or at least how their behavior is affecting you.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And what you just said is so true. They were probably never modeled that. And now that I'm older and I've read the books and I know the theory, he's probably coming from a transactional analysis. I'm okay, you're not okay. When we should all be thinking to each other with I'm okay and you're okay, right?
Mhm.
Sometimes what we do is not okay. So we always attack the behavior. I don't even want to use the word attack. We always address the behavior and never attack the person.
Mhm.
Um, so we know that now. He didn't know that. We didn't know that obviously way back then. But yeah, being able to model that, and also understanding that everybody is coming from a place of lack in some area, being you included, always,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So it's like being able to understand that, most people are probably doing about the best they can where they can. And everybody's just trying to meet a human need. We all have six different human needs. And they're probably trying to meet one. So anytime I come to a conflict situation with someone, and especially if it's heated and it's elevated, I'm always asking what need is currently not being met in this person's life that they're trying to get met, and how can I be a conduit to help meet that person's need? And then all of a sudden, everything starts to de-escalate.
Yeah, absolutely. So I 100% agree with you. And yet, as you already pointed out, we're still people and we're not perfect, right? So we have lacks and we have blind sides, blind spots. So when we we can be magnanimous and we can really think this way about people, and yet sometimes people still rub us the wrong way, right? I mean, I love people and I believe everything that you have just said. But I can feel myself sometimes still being not being generous in my own mind about somebody's behavior, about this, that, or the other. Um, so when you find yourself doing that, how do you disrupt that? How do you, I know your book that we're about to talk about, Failure Disrupted, how do you disrupt those narratives in your own mind or your own behavior when it comes to conflict?
I changed the question.
Hmm.
Questions are the rudders of everything that we do. It's going to direct you in the path forward. And our subconscious, Mary, is talking to us all the time. All the time. We have this person that sits in the car next to us and they just blabber. They just sit there. And did you turn off the stove? Did you do this? How's your hair look? Are you dressed the right way? How come you didn't say it this way? How come you said it that way? I mean, we just have this person that if we could actually take that person and put them in the seat next to us, we would probably pull the car over and kick them out and say, "Get out of my car. I'm not dealing with you anymore." But yet we can't because it's us. So I got really good in my life and I can always do better. Lord knows, I get ticked off and short-tempered with the rest of us. But it's all a question of what state are you in? People they go in and out of poor states, and things that would bother me when I'm in a good state wouldn't even, or in a bad state, wouldn't even show up on my radar when I'm in a good state,
Hmm.
right? So it's all about checking in with yourself. And I change the questions normally. So the question, instead of, my boss is being an a-hole to me and just cuss me out, how can they do that to me? Who do they think they are? These are questions that we're asking ourselves.
Hmm.
And those are, quite frankly, not very empowering. I can't do much about that type of
Yeah.
question. But when you can change the narrative to, man, that was really disrespectful. I'm not going to stand for that. And not but, and what's going on in his life that he would want to talk to somebody about like that? What's wrong with him? What issue is happening right now? What need is he trying to get met? That's obviously not met. Why is he walking in such fear right now instead of love? Because this is all fear-based stuff. He's afraid of something. What is that fear? So when you're able to change the question, obviously automatically that person who likes to talk in the car next to you all the time, they'll start changing the answer.
Hmm.
So use that person as a good counsel, so to speak, but you can only do that when you change the questions that you're asking. So for me, that's where it really is. It's about trying to change the rudder of where we're going to direct this to. And that takes being, checking in with yourself. And you can't always do it. You can't always do it. When I got fired before I started my companies, man, I mean, it was a political situation. I got pushed out because somebody else's wife needed a job and he was a C-suite person. It was really bad. So I took about 24 hours to sit there and lose it. I'm not saying this is positive thinking because I mean it's like looking at a garden. You don't want to sit there and go, there are no weeds, there are no weeds, there's only flowers. That's not true. And your body knows that, and your brain knows that. So you can't fake your way into that. You can look at it and go, yeah, this sucks.
Mhm.
And this is not good. And yeah, I'm gonna spend about 24 or 48 hours to really feel what I need to feel because negative feelings are there to serve me in some way,
Mhm.
right? It's not there to deny yourself. So feel those things and write yourself a letter that you never sent, which I did. And beat up the pillow if you need to. But that person, that's a season for a second. Don't let it stay forever. What you have to do is then start to change the questions. And it goes from how can they fire me right before my bonus, which doesn't help me, to how does this serve me? How does this give me a unique, or how does this give me a unique opportunity to be and to become something I couldn't become if I was too busy working 50 hours a week for somebody who didn't appreciate me? So when you change the question, you change the meaning. And when you change the meaning, you change the outcome.
Mhm.
And that all happens here. That's why I
Mhm.
say you'll get your life gets better primarily when you do. Yes, you'll always have outside circumstance. You can't control that, but you can absolutely control the questions you ask as it relates. And the biggest question I always ask is, if I don't know any other question to ask, I always ask, okay, I'm sitting in traffic right now. I can't move. How does this serve me? Well, call your mom. She always likes for you to call her. Well, I guess I have a moment.
Mhm.
Always at how is this an opportunity for me? And that's a different way of life.
Mhm.
Um, and it's a habit. You don't know we don't just show up that way.
Mhm.
You have to develop these skills.
I love that. You mentioned this wonderful, powerful word just a little bit before, and so you have this and that. This can be really terrible. And right, this is not about toxic positivity of don't look at that, deny it. No, terrible things happen. People do really bad things. Bad things happen to us intentionally or unintentionally. And so the idea of feeling it and feeling good information and it makes all this sense to be angry, to be however, right? And so to give that, but it's not this or that. I'm now angry and
That's right.
this injustice has to be committed against me. And that is now my story for years and months, but it could be this and now this, right? And
There's
so,
so much more. Many times it's a both and. It's not either or.
yeah, right.
My faith tells me in the Bible, my faith tells me, in your anger, do not sin. So anger to me is not a sin.
Right.
It's how it serves you and what you do with that.
Hmm.
Do I go back and I punch somebody in the face for it? Or do I go back and go, okay, this is a gift? And you can say, well, Johnny, that's just that's just not, I don't know, that's not realistic thinking. Well, I don't think it's realistic to see everything as negative like you do. So you don't know if it's true with all your negativity you're bringing to it. And maybe I don't know if it's true with all positivity I'm bringing to it. But if we both don't know, why don't you err on the side of this instead of the other way? And we'll see which one, helps you more. But that's just my philosophy. It works for me. It's worked for my family. It's worked for my businesses. It's worked for the people who worked in our businesses because they finally found their work and they finally found their home. And yes, it was a distinction. And you said earlier, Mary, about words being so powerful. And you're absolutely right. I have a whole chapter in there that talks about using language as leverage in your organization and how that's free. You don't have to pay for that. You're already doing it. Just get purposeful with the words you use. So when we talk about conflict, I have somebody in front of me. I would always tell them up front, "Hey, we're going to have a hard conversation, and it's going to hurt, but I don't mean for this to be harmful." And they would look at me funny. I go, this is going to be hurtful, but it's not going to be harmful because I care about the outcome for you and for us. It hurts to go to the dentist to get a tooth filled, but it's not harmful. We need to do the hurtful stuff sometimes, but I'm going to be with you through the process.
Hmm.
And I'm not going to leave you alone through it. Man, when you can have those types of conversations and people can trust that what you're saying is accurate, they will walk through the hard stuff with you
Hmm.
because they know they're not alone. So.
Oh, that's so beautiful because many times we don't do the hurtful thing because we want to be kind but we're not, it's just cowardice. We're not sparing anybody. And that is harmful when we don't tell people what's up, when we don't tell people that there's this, this behavior, this gap in performance behavior is going to make it so that they're not going to progress or they're going to be out of a job. That is selfish on our end. It's poor leadership and it's certainly not caring behavior towards them.
Amen.
Um, and one thing, the last thing I want to say about questions is I was just thinking, I'm a big believer in the power of questions. We are always supplying the answer to a question, right? And so what is the question? If the question is, why is this negative thing always happening to me? Why are they disrespecting me? Then that's what your mind is going to be thinking about, and those are the answers you're going to be supplying. Why are they so terrible? Why have they been hired? Why is nobody caring that they're mismanaging? That's where you're going to be living. But if you change the question, now you're supplying a different answer and different things open up. And one thing that I'm fond of doing with my clients right now is really asking, well, what is it that you want? Like, what is your goal? Where are you trying to get? And these short-term things like this person fired. Okay, well, let's realistically look at this. It's probably not going to happen. So what is it you want? Do you want peace in your job environment? Do you want what is it you want? Okay, well, these other things that you say you want are not going to get you to your actual goal. So let's figure out where you want to go and start working backwards. And maybe we can readjust this. I mean, people have a real desire for justice, which is wonderful, and that can be honed. But if it's not honed and really thought about, it can turn into vengeance or it can turn into this incapacitation where I can't move forward until you get your just desserts the way that I think you should be getting them. And it's
That's right.
this very disempowering place to be.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
So let's talk about your book, your new book, Failure Disrupted. Tell us about the origin and if we were to read it, what are we going to find in this lovely book?
So if you're going to read this book, you're going to find a roadmap that I went down 5 different times. I started off Providence Care, just wanting to be an end-of-life care provider with hospice care. That company turned into 5 different companies and a nonprofit. We ended up doing home health. We ended up doing geriatric house calls. We ended up doing assisted livings. Everything just kind of grew from starting from the end and working our way backwards. We started with patients who had a 6 months or life or less life expectancy, and we started going upstream to those that were just not terminally ill, but those that were chronically ill, or those that were acutely ill, or those. So we went up the stream, so to speak. We ended up creating 5 different totally separate companies, but all worked within one ecosystem, which was amazing for the patient experience. There was a one-stop shop to take care from soup to nuts through your life trajectory. Um, so that was my first stab at being an entrepreneur. I remember when I first got my first pen from Vistaprint, I told my wife, "Look, we got a pen. It's almost like we're a real company." Well, I said that all the way up to the time I sold my company to private equity in New York City. I was getting in a taxi, headed back to the airport after they just wrote me this check, and I went, "Oh, honey, it's almost like we had a real company." That was my mindset throughout the whole thing. But building those companies, I started noticing, Mary, milestones that we were hitting every time. And because I did it 5 times, I started seeing similarities in what we go through. And the best way I can describe it is like the life cycle of a child or life cycle of a human being. We
Mm,
all start off in the infancy stage, and then we start to become a toddler, and we start to bump into things because now we're trying to learn how to walk. And then we become a kid, and we're running all over the place, and then we become a young teenager. There's a life cycle. And what we know with that is the fact that you're going to have a different challenge with your child as a toddler bumping into things than you would an infant.
mm,
Well, if I know with each milestone that we're about to hit, if I know the challenges that are going to come, and I also know the opportunities that are going to come at that stage, I can start to anticipate. And anticipation is powerful. I
mhm,
don't have to guess anymore. So I wrote the book because I saw those same milestones happening over and over again. I saw the same challenges arise and the same decisions that had to be made arise at each separate milestone. And if you can systemize that and capture that, You can be prepared before it happens, and you can save millions of dollars in mistakes and years of work making the wrong mistakes. So I wrote the book looking backwards at what I did for a decade, wishing I would have had this book when I was in the middle of it. So I wrote the book for myself after I went through the process 5 times. And now I want to give it to anybody who's wanting to do anything, whether it's a business, a nonprofit, a church, an organization, or running for a political office. You all have to go through these same milestones. And the first milestone is to see the unseen. That is to cast the vision as to what you want to become, do, and be if you had everything available to you to get that done. What is that grand vision? And we just walk people through the entire process, all the way from success to significance.
Hmm. That's so wonderful. And they say the best book to write is the one that you want, right? You got to write for yourself, and then you find
Yeah.
that audience because there are obviously, so many people who don't know what to do next, or in the middle of it, and they think, oh, everything's falling apart because they don't know. Having a roadmap is it's much nicer to do it not in the dark, but going along with people who've already done it.
Yeah, it's a step-by-step process, and I have enough narrative in there to give you the background and the foundation through a story of what actually happened with real events. But
Mhm.
then for the practical people, for the other side of your brain, it's going to give the reader clear questions to ask on what you have to do at this stage, what challenges you're facing right now, and then action items. I give action items. Do this, 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 and this to get you to the next stage and get you out of this stage.
Mhm.
So it's practical, but it's also really informative with regards to some of the backstory and just the real sweat, blood, and tears that went into learning these questions to ask and learning these steps to take to get you from, being in a diaper to creating your own identity as a teenager and throughout the rest of your life cycle.
That's wonderful. Well, Johnny, I'm going to end with this question. As you look into the future of work and you think about your kids out in the workforce, what do you think needs to happen so that not only will all workers be treated with dignity and respect, but that they'll be encouraged to thrive and flourish?
Leadership is so important, and people are starving, they're starving for leadership.
Mhm.
And the people who are in leadership right now, they're so distracted. There's so many things coming at them. It's almost not even their fault. I think we have to be intentional as anybody that's a leader in an organization. If you're not a leader, you're coming up through it. Good leaders started off as good followers. And so if you're in that stage as well, the best thing I could tell people when I'm coaching is to say, slow down, first of all. Slow down. Anything that you're doing in a hurry is not going to be done well. Stop this whole work-life balance thing. Think about it more in terms of blend, like we talked about, but slow down and get clear on what you want to see that's currently unseen. Get clear what the vision is. Break it into 1 to 3 step chunks of what you can do pragmatically at the stage that you're in, and work towards that by being authentic, by being a good broker, having your heart in the right place. You're there not to do not to hurt and not to do harm. Um, and just keep asking good, intelligent questions about where you and the organization that you're involved with, where we're all going and what we're all doing. There's so many different things coming at us that I can't give you one panacea answer for all that because it's so individualized now. But not being a butthole to people gets you a long way. If being polite and being really caring and being curious instead of judgmental. Being curious, that's really curious. Can you tell me why you made that decision to do that to my schedule? I'm really curious about that. What did you see there that I didn't see? Help us become one with how we think with some of this stuff, so I can know what to expect, and you can know what to expect from me. So just go back to those great questions and try to take an attitude. Now I'm going to turn to you. I'm not going to turn on you. And tell people that up front, especially when it's going to be a hard conversation.
Mhm.
Hey, my intention for this conversation is X, Y, Z. And Mary, I'm probably going to screw it up, and I'm really nervous about talking to you right now. But my intention is, I hope that this is where we can get to. Can we have this conversation? And then you just lay it out You start with the end in mind, with what the intention is, and that will give you grace for screwing up the conversation, and give the other person grace for it, because they're going to show up wrong too sometimes. That's
Mhm.
all I can tell you right now. Otherwise, call me. I'm happy to coach people who have an individual problem.
That sounds great. Well, Johnny, thank you so much for your time. It's been a wonderful conversation.
I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Thank you, Johnny, so much for a great conversation. I could see that we are aligned on many things. I could have kept on talking to you for a long time. And I love this question about work and life in general, about who do I want to become? I think when we think about our work life and being a professional, that bigger question, that human question about the quality of our life and what is it we want? Who do I want to become? And if we answer that, a lot of our questions and struggles and trials at work become more clear. How are we going to show up? Because who are we in general? Everything here is temporary. Work is temporary. Difficulties are temporary. Power is temporary. And so thinking this longer vision of who am I and who do I want to become is really powerful. Well, thank you, Johnny. And I recommend listeners going out and looking at his book, Failure Disrupted. I know I'm going to. It looks fantastic. Conflict Managed is produced by third-party workplace conflict restoration services and hosted by me, Mary Brown. You can find us online at 3pconflictrestoration.com. Come back. We have new episodes every Tuesday. And if you would please like and subscribe to wherever you are listening or watching this podcast, that'd be much appreciated. You can watch this podcast if you would like on YouTube at 3P Conflict Restoration. You could also check out my book, How to Be Unprofessional at Work. It's 80 tips of what not to do and considers what to do instead to have a healthy work environment. Our music is courtesy of Dove Pilot. And remember, conflict is normal and expected. Let's deal with it. Until next time, take care.